I can't afford coffee. The morning light filtered through the tall windows of Willow Creek Cafe, casting golden patterns across the polished wooden floors. Sarah Chen stood at the entrance, her hands trembling slightly as she smoothed down her best dress, a simple navy blue piece she'd worn to every important occasion for the past 3 years. She checked her phone one more time. 10 minutes early, just as she'd planned. The cafe buzzed with the gentle hum of conversation and the rhythmic whoosh of the espresso machine. The rich aroma of freshly ground coffee beans filled the air, making Sarah's stomach flutter with both hunger and nerves. She hadn't eaten breakfast, choosing instead to save the $5 for something more important, like groceries for the week ahead. Her blind date had been arranged by her coworker, Emma, who insisted that Sarah needed to get back out there after her difficult divorce. "He's perfect for you," Emma had said with that knowing smile. "Trust me on this one." But now, standing in this upscale cafe where a simple latte cost more than her lunch budget, Sarah wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. She spotted him immediately. Tall, with sandy brown hair and kind eyes, he sat at a corner table near the window. A small girl with pigtails sat beside him, her legs swinging freely from the tall chair as she concentrated on coloring in a picture book. This had to be Michael. Emma had mentioned he was a single father, but somehow Sarah hadn't expected his daughter to join them. Taking a deep breath, Sarah approached the table. "Michael," she asked softly. He looked up and smiled, a warm, genuine expression that immediately put her at ease. "You must be Sarah. I'm so glad you could make it." He gestured toward the little girl. "This is my daughter, Lily. I hope you don't mind that she's here. My babysitter canceled at the last minute." "Of course not," Sarah replied, settling into the chair across from them. "Hi, Lily. That's a beautiful drawing." Lily looked up shyly, then returned to her coloring with renewed focus. A pink stuffed bunny sat propped against her arm, clearly a beloved companion. "Can I get you something to drink?" Michael asked, already rising from his seat. "The coffee here is incredible. Their specialty lattes are supposed to be amazing." Sarah's heart sank. She'd hoped they might just talk, maybe share a pastry at most. But refusing would seem rude, and she desperately wanted to make a good impression. Her mind raced through her options, her checking account balance flashed before her eyes. $37 and change until payday, which was still 4 days away. She began, then stopped. The words stuck in her throat like thick honey. How could she possibly explain without sounding pathetic? That she'd calculated the bus fare to get here down to the exact change. That she'd spent 20 minutes in her closet trying to make her limited wardrobe look presentable. Michael paused, sensing her hesitation. His expression softened with understanding. "Is everything okay?" The moment stretched between them like a fragile bridge. Sarah felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She could lie, make up an excuse about not being a coffee drinker, or being too nervous to eat. But something in Michael's patient, gentle demeanor made her want to be honest. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, looking down at her hands. "I can't afford coffee." The words hung in the air for a moment. Sarah wished she could disappear, melt into the wooden chair and become invisible. She'd probably just ruined any chance of a second date, or even finishing this first one gracefully. But Michael didn't look shocked or uncomfortable. Instead, he sat back down and leaned forward slightly, his voice warm and reassuring. "Thank you for being honest with me," he said. "That takes courage." Sarah glanced up, surprised by his reaction. There was no judgment in his eyes, no pity, just understanding. "You know," Michael continued, his tone conversational, "I went through something similar a few years ago. After Lily's mom passed away and I was figuring out how to balance everything, work, childcare, bills, there were months where every penny was accounted for. I remember skipping meals so Lily could have what she needed." Lily looked up from her coloring at the mention of her name, smiled at both adults, then returned to her artwork. Michael stood up again, this time with a different energy. "How about this? I was going to order 2 coffees anyway. One for me, and one that will probably sit there and get cold because I always order too much when I'm nervous." He grinned sheepishly. "Would you help me out by drinking the extra one? I hate waste." It was such a graceful way to handle the situation that Sarah felt her eyes begin to water. She nodded, not trusting her voice. When Michael returned with 2 steaming mugs, One simple coffee with cream, the other an elaborate latte with foam art. He also carried a small hot chocolate topped with whipped cream and a chocolate chip muffin broken into child-sized pieces. "For our artist here," he said, placing the treats in front of Lily, who clapped her hands in delight. As they settled into conversation, Sarah learned that Michael owned a small tech company he'd built from nothing after his wife's death. But more importantly, she discovered that he volunteered at the local food bank on weekends, often bringing Lily along to help sort donations. "Daddy says helping people makes your heart grow bigger," Lily chimed in during a lull in the conversation, looking up from her coloring with chocolate on her upper lip. "Is that so?" Sarah asked, charmed by the little girl's wisdom. "Uh-huh, like the Grinch, but not mean." Michael laughed, reaching over to wipe his daughter's face with a napkin. She's not wrong. As the afternoon wore on, Sarah found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in months. Michael asked thoughtful questions about her work at the local library, her love of books, her dreams of maybe finishing her teaching degree someday. He didn't make her feel lesser for her struggles, but rather admired her resilience. When it came time to leave, Michael walked them to the bus stop. "I had a really wonderful time today," he said. "Would you maybe like to do this again? Next time, though, how about a picnic in the park? Lily loves feeding the ducks, and it's free." Sarah felt something warm bloom in her chest. Hope, she realized. "I'd love that." As her bus approached, Michael touched her arm gently. "Sarah, what you said today, about being honest about your situation, that meant everything to me. In my line of work, I meet a lot of people who pretend to be something they're not. Your authenticity is refreshing." Riding home on the bus, Sarah reflected on the afternoon. She'd expected judgment, pity, or uncomfortable silence. Instead, she'd found kindness, understanding, and the beginning of something that felt like hope. Sometimes, she thought, the most beautiful connections begin not with what we can offer, but with the courage to be genuinely ourselves. The city lights began to twinkle outside the bus window, and for the first time in a long while, the future felt bright with possibility.